Now that you know how to use the complex shape and region tools, what practical uses does it have? Now, aside from creating new shapes that can be used for various purposes, one significant application is the measurement of perimeter and area. And on the screen, you can see a fairly simple drawing, which we're going to use for such measurements. Now, I'd like you to draw along with me. It's a fairly simple drawing to create. And I'm working in my standard architectural English units, but you can work in metric too if you wish, and I'll give you the metric dimensions as we go. So follow along with me, please. First, we'll draw the circle. So this is the inner circle, and the radius of that is 15 feet. So I type 15 at the keyboard and left click. In metric, that's 4,500 millimeters. Now I change tactics a little bit. The next set of elements I'm drawing will be construction type elements, because I don't want them to display in the final drawing. So let's change from primary to construction. Now before we carry on, and make sure that construction is on in view attributes. And you can see the construction lines which I drew previously. We need another circle, so circle tool. And the radius of this one is 13'6". So I type 13.5 and left click. In metric, that's 4,000 millimeters. Now I need 3 lines, each one at a 30-degree angle from the other. So line tool, center, upwards, doesn't matter how high. Now I need to rotate and copy this line. So I will select the line, right click, rotate, active angle, set 30 degrees, and set single copies. Data point at the center, data point at the center again, and right click, and data point to unselect the line. Now we can draw the arcs. Now these are part of the finished drawing, so we go back to primary, and we draw the arcs. I will zoom in, arc tool. We have no information about the angles or radiuses, so we don't need that, but we do need to select Start Center as the method. So, Start and Center. My first start point will be there at that intersection. My center will be at this intersection. And the end point will be at this intersection. Now you may have some trouble doing this, as I am, so we need to change to the intersection snap. This is an override only. There's my arc. Now I can turn off the construction information, so off to View Attributes, turn off Constructions, and there's my single arc. Now I need to array it. So off to the Array tool, need a polar array. There are 6 items, and the angle will be 60 degrees. Now, if you don't know the angle, of course, what you do is type 360, because I want the arcs to go a full circle, and we divide it by however many number of copies we need. So that will be 6, and enter. And that automatically calculates the 60 degrees for me. I need to rotate the items as we array around the center. Watch the prompts, identify the element, that's the arc, and we need to find a center there. Done. So there's my flower shape. Now let's take a look at the measurement tools. I'm going to float that toolbox. Here are my measurement tools, and we're particularly interested in the measure length and measure area tools. As you may remember from the level 1 course, the measure length tool measures the length of an element, while the measure area tool measures the area and perimeter of a closed shape. In the case of this flower drawing, the petals are open arc elements and the circle is a closed shape. Now there are 2 approaches you can take when you need perimeter and area measurements. Firstly, you can create a complex chain or complex shape and apply the measure tools to those elements. You might want to do this if you need the complex element for purposes other than the perimeter or area values. In addition, the measure tools may not be able to directly measure complex shapes without first creating a complex element. And secondly, you can use the measure tools without first creating a complex element. You would use this method if you don't need a complex shape for other purposes, and if the measure tools are capable of creating temporary complex elements on their own. Let's start by measuring the area and perimeter of the inner circle. And for this we need the area tool. This is the measure area tool. And we'll use the element method since the circle is an element. Click on the circle, and immediately the area and perimeter of the circle displays in the tool settings window. It also displays in the status line too. The length of the circle, we need the measure length tool. Click on the circle, and the length of the circle, in other words the circumference, is shown in the tool settings window. We can use the same tool, of course, to measure the length of one of the arcs. Same tool, data point on an arc, and the length displays. The next thing to do is to find the area and perimeter of one of the petals. Now, as you are aware right now, the petal shape is formed from the arc element and a portion of the central circle. The Measure Areas tool requires that a closed shape be present, but that does not exist at the moment. One approach will be to make a complex shape from the arc of the petal and the arc of the circle, but you can't do this without breaking the circle at the petal's arc endpoints. Fortunately, the Measure Area tool can create temporary complex shapes using Boolean operations. And in this case, we'll use the flood method. So, next step is to start the Area tool again. Change the method to flood. And we data point inside one of the petal areas. Data point again to accept. The flood method creates a temporary complex shape and presents the measurements in the tool settings window. Now I want to measure the area and perimeter of the entire flower. Since the petals are individual elements, you'll likely want to use the flood method to find the total area. However, the flood method won't work because the inner circle is present and the Locate Interior Shapes option won't help. Before we actually do the measurements, we need to change the method. We need to change it to element from flood. Since we've just created a complex shape, the element method is the obvious choice. Now I select the complex shape as an element, and the area and perimeter pop into place again. So far so good. Now having done all of that, you have the option of keeping the complex shape for other uses or undoing the shape back to its original elements. Now as a question, can you think of another way of measuring the area and perimeter of the flower? What if you first deleted the circle and then used the flood method of the Measure Area tool to perform the calculation? That would work, but if you needed the circle, you'd have to undo after that calculation to redraw the circle. Give that a try on your own. Now, one last thing in this set of videos. We've busily created complex elements and complex shapes. How do we undo the complexity of these things? Well, quite simple. We go to the Drop Element tool, and in this case, we need to have complex ticked. Let's work on the complex shape we have here. Data point on that, and we'll double check, and we have individual petals back again. So very simple to undo. Now, as always, please practice. Create some more complex shapes yourself of a similar kind, and try the measurement tools again. The better you are at this work, the better you'll be when we discuss patterning.